You open this door with the key of reason. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of truth. A dimension of freedom. A dimension of joy. You're moving into the land of both the ideal and the real, of the possible and the actual. You've just crossed over into the capitalist corner.
Where reason meets reality, welcome to the capitalist corner.
Welcome, everybody. You didn't think you'd be seeing us this Monday, but here we are. We decided to be able to make time, even though Michael is in California enjoying the California sun, down there in San Diego after visiting Leonard Peikoff on his birthday. He's decided to make some time for us here at the Capitalist Corner. I'm your host, Mark Pellegrino, and the chairman of the American Capitalist Party, along with my co-host, Michael Liebowitz, and the vice chair of the American Capitalist Party, also the host of his own show, The Rational Egoist. Before you tell us what's going on in The Rational Egoist, Michael, I want to hear a full report about Leonard Peikoff's birthday, unless it's all top secret.
No, it's not top secret, but there's really nothing going on in the Capitalist Corner. There will be next week.
You mean Rational
Good
Egoist?
stuff. Rational Egoist, yeah. See, I'm all screwed up. I don't know how you live on this California time. It being 9 o'clock right now, everything's out of whack. I tried to watch TV. The TV menu's out of whack. It's all screwy. But the weather's wonderful. The people are nice and the girls are pretty, so that kind of makes up for it. But nothing will be going on the Rational Egoist until next week. What will be happening, though, is me telling you about my experience. This was freaking fantastic. So first of all, I got to hang out. Nicole Hingle is wondering about the shirtless pics. I'll get to that, too. I will.
Yeah, I saw those, too. I was wondering, it was nighttime. You're wandering around the streets of San Diego with no shirt. What was that?
Well, I wasn't wandering. First of all, I wasn't wandering. I was standing, and it was in front of Razi's hotel. So already this was an upscale hotel.
No, really?
Right? Already. Oh, my God. I think Razi parked his chopper on the roof. And
what?
Huh?
Why do you assume this about Razi?
Because Razi and you are the richest objectivists. Everyone knows that.
No. Oh my God. Not even by a long shot.
And we also know that you two have a secret agreement not to tell anybody about it. But anyway, So let me tell you what happened. So before I headed out here, I got a text from Razi that said, "Hey, how about we meet up in Little Italy? It's at 7:30 on Friday night." I thought, "Oh, that's great. We'll meet up over there." So I get picked up. I had a car. Razi sent a car to pick me up, and we headed down there to Little Italy, and we walked around. We had some fun, but objectivists have this reputation of being uptight, right? So I said, "Well, I'm not uptight." So they're all hanging out, do, and I just whipped off the shirt. 50 years old. Hey, then Razi and Chandler, because Chandler was the driver that Razi sent to pick me up. And I found out it's Chandler from the chat here that I'm yelling at sometimes. But he's a strong-willed guy. He doesn't take my yelling at him personally. And Razi's great. Razi is one of the funnest people to hang out with. Let me say, I tease him about how wealthy he is, but he is awesome to hang out with. He's not a skirt, so you can break his balls. He breaks back. It's a ton of fun. So Razi, his producer Daniel, and Chandler, me, and my lovely Diana, we were having a blast. So Razi and Chandler go upstairs for a second, and I'm sitting there, and Daniel and Diana are very quiet because they're boring people. I mean, let's be honest. But I should say this. Everybody's boring compared to me. I'm a very exciting person. So I say I'm looking at my lovely Diana and Daniel, and they're just sitting there. So I say, you know what I'm going to do?
This braggadocio is sounding a little Trumpish. I just have to
Can I finish?
Yeah, go ahead, finish.
So I decided, I took my shirt off. I jumped up on the little ledge there, which was above the picnic table that you couldn't see. And I decided to sing shirtless and completely sober. So I sing Holding Out for a Hero by Bonnie Tyler. And it was a blast. And Diana decided to snap a picture. And I one-upped her by posting. No, Daniel's not boring, Jim. Daniel's a ton of fun. I'm teasing. But he's not as fun as Jim Valiant. I don't know if anybody on the planet is as fun as Jim Valiant. I think if Jim were with me, he would have taken his shirt off as well. And by the way, Robert Nacer, I think, would have also. And we'd have been 3 shirtless objectivists making fools of ourselves and having a blast. So that's the story behind that. Hanging out with Rozzy was wonderful. Then Saturday morning, Rozzy came to pick me up. I go outside the hotel here, and poor Daniel's just sitting there outside the hotel. And I says, Daniel, what the hell are you doing? He's by himself sitting there. He says, oh, I'm just waiting for Rozzy because he's bringing us all. And I said, well, why didn't you let me know you were here? I would have let you in the room. You don't have to sit out in the sun. But anyway, so then Rozzy came with the wonderful Jonathan Hoenig. So Diana and I drove up. What a ride. Rozzy, Jonathan Hoenig, and Daniel. It was so I had an absolute blast before ever laying eyes on the legendary Dr. Peikoff, Leonard Peikoff. So I should also tell you that we had went out for Mexican with Jim and Felipe and Jacob Berman. That was an amazing time as well. And while we were out, I learned something about Rozzy. He's very competitive. I didn't previously know this. We had a group picture taken because I had earlier had a group picture taken with Jim. And that got quite a lot of comments and likes. So Rozzy says to me, okay, we're all going to post this because we want to see which picture gets more comments and likes, ours or the one with Jim. And then Rozzy pulled this, and I don't know if this is fair. Rozzy says, I'm going to go back and unlike the previous picture of the one with Jim and Felipe, and I'm going to like ours. And I think that's kind of cheating, but I digress. So
it's one vote. It's one vote.
It's one vote that was important enough for him to go and undo.
Okay. I mean, if the distinction between the popularity of the pictures is one vote, then, it's a distinction.
Well, you never know. But then I also discovered something else, by the way, that everywhere I go now, it's, oh, how's Mark? How about how's Michael? How's Mark? Where's Mark? Is Mark coming? Can we expect to see Mark? Why don't you ask Mark? Okay.
I was invited, by the way, and I couldn't come because I was in travel mode at the time.
Yes. Okay. So now this party was absolutely astounding. Just to the people that I saw, that I got to talk to, was amazing. To be able to converse with Leonard Peikoff, one of my absolute heroes, was an incredible experience.
Well, talk about it. Don't be so general. Let's hear about it.
Can I tell the story?
Yeah, but you're telling it in a general way. You're mostly talking.
No, I'm going to get to it. You build up. You're an actor, don't you know about? You build up the tension and then you tell the story.
Building to a conclusion that's any fun.
So it is though, because Jim tells me go sit down next to Leonard, and I'm like, there's 50 people here. Everybody wants to sit next to Leonard. So, but I went and I sat down. So we start to talk. I tell him how he's changed my life, how he's helped to change the lives of my friends. I got to talk to him about Dr. Samanow.
Did he ask you how Mark was and where was Mark?
Can I tell the story and not make it about you? You asked me to tell the story about me. So anyway, I'm talking to him and then I got to talk to him about Dr. Samanow. And I told him, independently of you, I came to the same conclusions about Dr. Samanow and the integration with objectivism. And he says, oh, to compare me, he's a very humble guy, which, it's interesting because he doesn't need to be. But he says, oh, you're comparing me, putting me in the same company with Dr. Samanow. It's an honor. So then I told him, I said, listen, can I ask you a philosophical question? And he said, okay, but that's going to take a couple hours to discuss. And he seemed more than willing to engage in the couple hours of philosophical discussion. So anyone who knows who has read my book knows that I have a slight disagreement with Leonard Peikoff when it comes to rights. So I asked him, and I said, can we talk about rights? Unfortunately, somebody else came in. They wanted to talk to him, and I decided, I'm not going to force the issue. There's so many people that want to talk to him. I got to talk to him for 10 minutes. That was wonderful. And then he told stories about rag music, and just
apparently that's his newest obsession.
Yes, but at 92 years old to be able to discourse and with that level of clarity is just, if we all get that, we'd be extremely fortunate. but it was a fun time. I got, we had an argument with Rozzy, me, and Nikos. We had a debate about the show Friends. That was fun.
And
Jim,
what was the debate about the show Friends?
well,
Do you
here's the
guys have
problem.
Is
Here's
it a
the problem.
non-objectivist show?
No. Here's the problem is I've discovered about Rozzy in the course of debate is a shifter. He's a goalpost mover. He'll make a claim, and then when you call him out on the claim, say, I didn't say that. And then 2 minutes later, make the same claim again. So the night before, he told me that Nico said that Friends has ruined Western culture.
Oh, come on.
All right. So that's the proposition to
Nikos.
debate. But then he's there and Rozzy says, no, that's not what I said. Then 2 minutes later, he says, no, that's what Nico did say. So we went back and forth a few times about whether or not he said this, but the arguments that they put forward were terrible. I eviscerated both of them. And then they tried to bring Jim in thinking he would help. And Jim, once I made my argument, Jim said, no, Michael's right. And then Rozzy got upset about that. But I also, I was able to meet
So you
in
were
person.
pro Friends.
Yes.
You were on the pros. As we look, I think Dexter more than any show probably represents the decay of Western civilization. To be honest with you, it's exactly what I said to my wife when I read the pilot episode. I said, "You're never going to believe this, but the hero of the show is a serial killer."
Oh, Dexter.
Yeah, Dexter.
I think, Mark, if you were going to point to a show that was indicative of the moral decay in Western
Baby Reindeer.
society, no, can I?
I'm just going to throw out. I'm going to throw out shows. I'm gonna
Okay.
guess shit.
So prior to this show, most television shows had a good ending. There was some type of a moral undercurrent. Once Married with Children came in, that was complete debauchery. And that was in
Right.
87, I think it came out. So a stronger case could be made for that. But Friends was a wonderful show. They were talking about the men are weak and this all kinds of hyper masculine nonsense. But it was a great time. I also got to meet Yaron Brook. I met Talat Safani, Amanda Maxim. Somebody said in the chat here, did you go off on David Harriman? I did not. It was not my party. I would not. I wasn't going to do that. I did meet him.
Wait a minute. What's the beef there? Forgive me if I should have known this and have forgotten it. What's the beef with
Harriman? Is a big Trump guy.
Oh, still?
Oh, yeah. As far as I know,
Really?
Yeah, they're holding on for dear life. The Trump contingent of proclaimed objectivists.
Does that include Bernstein
Yes.
and Bosch? They are still holding on to Trump, irrespective of all the crap that's been going on over the last few months. They are still sticking with Trump.
Yes. And I, back to talk seriously for, I've been having fun and, we joked and whatnot, but on a serious level, Jim Valiant said seasons 12 and 13 of Supernatural were the ruination of civilization, obviously. So,
I'd love to know why that is.
but
Ray says something about Married with Children. Satire, you're not meant to take it seriously. They're all walking caricatures. I would say satire should be taken very seriously because it is a real commentary through comedy.
Good satire.
Yeah, good satire.
Yes.
So if we do take that show seriously, then it is a really about the disintegration of the American family and American values, for sure.
Yes. So, but to this point, so there's a couple things here, Mark, and I think that these things are of vital importance. And I'm pessimistic about the future. I don't know that this fight can be won, but I think it needs to be fought. I think that the Trump dynamic is both a culmination and a threat to the future of no, Peikoff is not. You should not say that. I like numbers because it's not true. But so I think that Trumpism is a threat, a serious one. I think that I think Trump is just the sort of figurehead. I think that the undercurrent of what that is, the Christian nationalist movement represented by the likes of J.D. Vance, Benny Johnson, Stephen Miller. I think these guys are extremely dangerous. So just on a political point, I think they have to be contested. And, the problem is people will say, well, you're obsessed with Trump. The guy is on a semi-regular basis murdering people on the high seas. He is violating laws here at home. He says things that are absolutely absurd. They threaten free speech. What are you supposed to do? Just shut your trap and let them just completely do away with what is left of the Constitution and what's left of, American freedom? But even aside from that, right, aside from the political thing, there's a separate point, and this has to do with objectivism. I've been studying objectivism for over 20 years now. It has changed my life. It's done tremendous things for me, for my character, for my friendships. I can't even put it into words, really, how much it's done for me. And I do not, matter of fact, it's not I don't believe, I know that objectivism is not compatible with the MAGA movement. Full stop.
Absolutely.
It's just not. I'm not talking, and I have to say this, and I hate that I have to say it. I'm not talking about somebody who pulled the lever for Trump, who pressed a button and cast a vote because of poor options. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm specifically talking about the MAGA movement. And if anybody is still in denial about the MAGA movement and what it represents and the things they say, then you're just either willfully blind or you're lying. Right. So,
well, Michael, they have Trump derangement syndrome on the other side as well.
Very badly.
And because the opposition at the moment is some of the establishment left and the democratic socialists on the left who are now proclaiming the value of the Constitution and now trying to require constitutional limits to presidential authority, they see that as false as it is, of course. And so they still maintain their fidelity to Trump, I think, in the face of this hypocrisy on the side of the left. The real solution, folks, is the American Capitalist Party, because that's a truly principled party, not a tribalistic one that abides by the principles of individual rights. And that's the true solution. Now, Michael, when you and I had our discussion about whether or not it was appropriate in a free individual rights respecting society to ban certain parties, one very significant truth came out. The culture simply is not prepared for a individual rights respecting society. They're not intellectually prepared for it. They're not morally prepared for it. And that's probably part of what's lending credence to your pessimism at the moment. I would prefer to remain optimistic and hope that reason is far more powerful. But we're certainly on the fringes of
Mark. I would prefer
collision of two terrible cultures. Yeah, go ahead.
I would prefer to remain optimistic. It's just I have to look at the reality. But I just wanted to get back for a second, Mark, to this objectivism thing. There are people out there who act as if objectivism is consistent with the MAGA movement. There's people, my good friend Andy Bernstein, good friend, but he says that Donald Trump is a hero.
And a teacher of philosophy. A teacher of philosophy.
He says that Donald Trump is a hero. No. So the aforementioned David Harriman put a post, I want to say on Facebook, but it might have been Twitter, I'm not sure, where he says, I love Ayn Rand. And that's why I hate the people who are so vehement against Trump, the so-called objectivists who are whitewashing what the left does. Really? That's the problem you see? That objectivists are whitewashing the left? And it's
the left against the right at all costs, and that's why they're willing to swallow some of the crap that, not some of the crap, all of the crap that Trump is throwing down, which, you said he's killing people on the high seas. This exactly relates to the first article you sent me.
Before you get to that, I just want to say one more thing, Mark.
Yeah.
And then we can get to the next point.
Sure.
I once read a great book called The Origins of Left and Right. And it was about Thomas Paine and Edmund Burke. And it was a great book. And I happen to like both Paine and Burke. I think each had their strong points, each had their weak points. I've read them both. Paine far more extensively than Burke, but I've read them both. And I can honestly say, I really don't see I get why the claim was made that that's the origins of the left and right, but in terms of who the left and right are today, or who call themselves the left and right today, I should probably put it, I don't see either as descendants of Burke or Paine. The right certainly is not descended from Burke, and the left certainly not descendants of Thomas Paine.
No, I think it goes back. I think it goes back to the French National Assembly, man. I think it goes back to the radical democratists, the Jacobins versus the traditionalists. And if the right were traditionalists,
well, that's where the saying comes from. You're correct.
Yeah, but if the right were traditionalists attempting to conserve American traditionalism, that would have meant classical liberalism. So they would have been the standard bearers for classical liberalism, which I don't think in their entire history they've ever seen themselves as the standard bearers of classical liberalism. I don't remember William F. Buckley ever articulating the conservative vision in that sense. He seemed more as an oppositional force to progressivism at the time, which is, of course, the encroachment of the state and the ever widening state over the individual. So conservatism from the get-go has been ideologically mixed, I think, even though it should have been the standard bearer for classical liberalism. It lost the narrative almost from the beginning. So, and of course, they refer to Burke now. I mean, they refer to him often in some of their more intellectual writings, but it's certainly not reflected in the current movement, nor in most of the movement the past 20 or 30 years. Anyway, you alluded to the fact that Trump is killing people on the high seas, and there was an article in the Epoch Times where Trump is to increase tariffs and cut subsidies to Colombia over drug trafficking. Now, I think you and I could agree that subsidies to other countries is wrong. That's something that a capitalist-oriented society would not indulge in. Stealing the taxpayers' money to subsidize foreign countries is not what taxes should be for. Voluntary taxation should be for providing protection services to the United States citizens and the people who are living in the United States. It's not about subsidizing other governments. It's not about subsidizing industries of other governments. It's not about picking up the poor from other governments. The poor of other countries, the industries of other countries, and the financial well-being of other countries is their responsibility, not ours. So you can say that taking care of these subsidies, which Trump is solely using for leverage to manipulate the president of Colombia. That's all he's using it for. It's not a principled withdrawal of subsidies. It's a withdrawal to use as leverage in order to promote this insane drug war that Trump has escalated to the point of now killing people on the high seas. Now, one of the controversial deaths that occurred, Michael, was in September of 2025, a Colombian fishing boat was hit. Now, American intelligence claimed that on September 15th, 2025, this boat was carrying, drugs, when it in fact was a fishing boat in distress, stalled, its engine up, its distress signals out. A lifelong fisherman was aboard. Apparently in Colombian waters, not in international waters at all, but he was certainly not a carrier of drugs, and he was nonetheless attacked and killed. Now, this case is, I think, going to be pursued, but it's you think this mistake partly inspired Trump to distract the public from this with these tariffs and with now turning the tables on the president of Colombia rather than admitting and acknowledging blame for murdering an innocent human being on the high seas?
I don't know. I do know that, it's for any of us. I think this is true. When you see stories on television, right? Let me first give an analogy, right? Mark, I had seen you in countless things on television over the years. When I first met you, I didn't know that it was you until you told me, oh, I was in that. And then I remembered it all clicked. And I've had now this opportunity over and over again to meet people that I'd previously only seen as public figures, right? And interact with them. When you meet somebody and get to see who they are and how they interact and whatnot, it's a much different experience than when you see somebody on television or you listen to somebody on the radio. The person that you're listening to almost doesn't seem real in those instances. You know, it's a movie star, or, oh, that's a pundit. But when you actually are interacting, you realize these are humans. They're people. They're not just some guy that you can attack on the internet, because he's famous. It's a human being. And I think the same thing happens when you look at war or murders. When you just see them on TV, 16 killed over here, it's just, random people. But when you think about it, these are actually human beings. So these are actually human beings on these boats that are being killed, that are being murdered. And the people who want to open their mouths to say, no, they're drug dealers. How, pray tell, do you know that? Because Trump says so? The whole reason that we have due process and we have a jury system is so that we can get to the truth of the matter, because we know the government can be wrong, right? We know they can. And we do not, like, anyone who doesn't understand this, please research history. We do not want a situation where the government on its own gets to decide who can live and who can die, who is guilty and who is not guilty. So yes, they're claiming they're drug dealers. Even if they're drug dealers, last time I checked, drug dealing is not a death penalty offense. And if it is, it should not be. It shouldn't even be illegal. But
well, Mike, that's why the hyperbolic language. That's why they're
sure. Well, they're now narco terrorists.
Narco terrorists,
right? They attach terrorists to everything. Right?
Yeah, to justify an expansion of government force.
Murder. Yes, to justify murder. I like numbers. Leonard Peikoff was wonderful in person. He's a very nice guy, was very benevolent with his time. Just seemed very happy to me, to be honest with you. If I had to describe him, he just seemed happy, like a happy guy. And if I can be happy at 92, just let me be happy.
Oh, yeah, I'd take that. Greg Dougherty says the America First demands the rest of the world be sacrificed to America in contrast to freedom first. I love that formulation, Michael. I got to say, that's a great formulation. Yeah, the America Firsters are in a zero-sum game with the rest of the world. It's as if Trump doesn't understand what trade actually means. That trade is an exchange of values to mutual benefit. He seems to see the world as you lose, I win. It's a real shame, because it's put us at odds with our allies, not just the people that we should really be concerned about. And in some respects, he's getting into bed with people we should really be concerned about. The Saudis, the Qataris, all of these folks he seems to be siding with, even though he seems to also be trying to play the side of mediator with Israel. He's siding with these rather obnoxious and nefarious powers, whom we should not be allied with. Also, Dougherty said something here. Present day left and right are more analogous to the left-right of the 30s, communism versus fascism. I also agree with that. I think we are seeing the ominous parallels take place right now. And it just once again shows what a fantastic grasp many objectivist intellectuals have on intellectual trends and where they lead. I mean, if you read Atlas Shrugged today, you'll see much of what's happening in the world today already written in that document, in that novel, as if she was prescient, as if it's like she was the Nostradamus of the 20th century. Well, she just knew where ideas lead, the logical conclusions of ideas. And I wish the rest of the world would understand. Ideas are the lever of the world, and ideas go places, and we have to know where those ideas go.
Leonard Peikoff's ominous parallels and the dim hypothesis read as prophecy at this point. Somebody says, before you go to the next story, somebody says that Leonard loves dogs. Yeah, that's one thing I forgot to mention when I was talking to him. He just brought up dogs. He told me how much he loved he had this dog he loved that was part Australian Shepherd, and he absolutely adored the dog. I talked to Jonathan Hoenig. He absolutely loves his dog, and they have a book, Can You Love Dogs? I think it's called. I don't want to butcher the name, but if you look it up, Jonathan Hoenig. Yes, with Leonard Peikoff, Can You Love Dogs? And by the way, and Jonathan was asking me about Mark in regard to Frankie, of course, and it was a beautiful time, and I really just thank Jim Valiant for it. But I love dogs. Obviously, Mark loves dogs, so we're in very good. Can We Love Pets? Jim Valiant. Jim, post the name of the book because you'll know it, and I don't want to get it wrong. But Jim Valiant. I'm going to get a little emotional. I was thinking the other day, Mark, about some people, and I was going to post it, but I guess I'll just say it now. I think Subby Scalora, Jim Valiant, Mark Pellegrino, and Thomas Pentelow, the friendship that each of you has given to me and enriched my life in ways that I never even dreamed of while I was sitting in that cage. Just thank all of you. Thanks to Tom. Thanks, Subby. Thank you, Mark. And thank you, Jim Valiant. You know, Jim Valiant made that experience Saturday happen for me. And wow, it's just a very surreal. I mean, I'm Saturday I'm at a party with Leonard Peikoff. I'm driving up with Jonathan Hoenig, and today I'm doing a podcast with Mark Pellegrino. I mean, how fucking crazy is it? Less than 3 years out of prison. What a great life.
It's the American dream, baby. That's what it's all about. And I
Yes,
appreciate
sir.
you, Michael. Just as much as you appreciate me, you've enriched my life as well. Bonnie Bertrand says something here. Why is there no impeachment? Well, that's because there's no power in Congress to do it at the moment. There really isn't the opposition. But I guarantee you, as soon as the seats shift in 2026, should that be the case, there probably will be impeachment proceedings against him. What do you say about that, Michael?
The book is called Can You Really Love a Dog? By the way, both Bonnie Bertrand and Jim Valiant say that. According to what is the way that Congress is made up, there's just very little Republican pushback ever to Trump.
But let's say the House changes hands in 2026.
Well, even if so that could happen. Then they'll impeach him, and the Senate
and the Senate will not.
So it doesn't matter. Mitch McConnell previously said, "Oh, let the Justice Department, let the justice system do its job. We don't need to impeach. We don't need to convict." And we see how that turned out. They just did. There's very few Republicans that stand up to him, and when they do, I mean, Thomas Massey gets destroyed by Trump. And there's things about Massey I don't personally like, but he does stand up to Trump. So does somebody I absolutely detest as a Republican, Marjorie Taylor Greene. I can't stand her, but she's been, going against the grain lately. Rand Paul is maybe the only principled one out there. He does it, but they're few and far between. There's no impeachment. The only way that we fix this country is if we fix this country.
There's got to be a philosophical revolution, folks,
Yes.
before there's a revolution in arms. Otherwise, it's going to be one strong man being exchanged for another, one demagogue being exchanged for another. We have to have the philosophical basis to make the kind of revolution that the founders made, which, frankly, Michael, back then there was just some inherent qualities in the culture. The fact that the England largely left people in America alone made them self-sufficient, made them their character was sort of honed in the furnace of self-sufficiency and making your own way and literally not having the government in any way bother them. And so that became almost an inherent characteristic of an American colonist. And that carried through, that served as sort of the foundation for all the intellectual and philosophical and moral stuff that was articulated by the founders. And they were able to use that foundation to carry through that Republican Revolution back then. We don't have that anymore. I feel like we've been becoming Europe for 40 years or more. And so now I get the sense that the majority of people here look at government the way Europeans look at government. not the way Americans look at government, with extreme distrust, that it has to be restrained by constitutional restraints, and that everything in human life, with the exception of force, should be up to themselves. Do you see this Europeanization of America has been going on for has been going on as long as I have?
I don't know enough about European politics to give an intelligent answer. I have been hearing that for quite some time, and from people that are pretty smart. So I don't doubt it, but I don't know enough. Certainly, we're not parliamentary, so I mean that changes things a little bit. But we do have the populism, I think, is, and I don't know how strong that is in Europe, but I know it's really strong here.
Well, the idea that you look to government to solve problems that should be solved by the communities themselves, or by the individuals themselves, or you look to them to supply goods and services as if they're rights. That's a very European concept that used to be foreign to America, and now not so much. Now it seems to be the lay of the land. It seems to be what the majority of people think.
Yeah, people definitely look to the government when they shouldn't. And as I'm getting a little depressed here, just thinking about this stuff, I'm remembering that I'm going to the zoo today. So I'm happy about that.
Well, zoos usually depress me, I got to be honest with you, as an animal lover, when I see these poor things trapped in enclosures that don't satisfy their psychologies. I see them as unhappy and depressed, and that's a little disturbing to me. I think modern zoos are starting to get more respectful of animal psychology, and so they are starting to make enclosures that are more stimulating for them, and that of course helps them become a lot more psychologically healthy.
Dude, are you going to depress me on my way to the zoo?
They are preserving, of course, species that may not be preserved in the wild, so that's a good thing.
Are you zoo shaming me right now?
I am zoo shaming you. But if you don't want to be zoo shamed, there is a section of the San Diego Zoo that is completely open, and you go there and you pay a special fee for it, and you go there. It's a safari trip. You will see animals out in the open, uncaged. None of them will jump into the van and try to eat you, which is fantastic. But there are some amazing creatures there, including giraffes, which I have to tell you right now, you can't look at the giraffes directly in the eye. If you do, they'll swing their 150-pound heads at you.
They go sick?
They go sick. They go sick if you look at the eye. But you can feed them like eucalyptus leaves over your shoulder, and they'll you'll see their 30-inch tongue come out and grab the leaf. I have pictures of it. It's great. I'll send them to you.
Look. We got the San Diego Zoo is especially good at habitats, and that comes from Jim Valiant.
I'm explaining that right now, that they have this whole section that's like a safari.
You're saying there's this isolated part, and you're trying to guilt me and tell me I have to go to that.
Zoos in general do not create atmospheres that are healthy for animals psychologically. If you ever went to the LA Zoo, which you haven't, they had a polar bear there for like 30 years who finally passed away. The poor thing, it was a mercy that it passed away, because every time I went to see this poor little beast, he was in some form of, visible depression, and
I don't know.
Repetitious, anxious behavior. I mean, the guy was going full psychotic because his enclosure was not built for a creature of that size.
You cannot psychoanalyze a polar bear. You can't psychoanalyze a polar bear. No, you can't.
I can look at the body language of an animal and tell whether or not
this sounds this is codswallop.
Look at the elephants in the elephant enclosures, and even in the San Diego Zoo,
I've heard this is codswallop. I've heard that this idea that the animals in zoos are unhappy is codswallop. You're trying to justify the fact that
you are going to a prison for animals.
It's not a prison.
You can actually
I see them frolic. I see them frolicking around. Yeah, I went. Yeah, they're happy. You don't know.
Yes, I do.
No, you don't. This is codswallop. I'm gonna research this after I go. And I'm going to find out animals can't do it
Jason
themselves.
Adams,
Et tu, Brutai?
Europe enacts a lot of policies just because they feel good. Yes, that's it. I mean, and we live in a spoils system democracy now, not a constitutionally limited representative republic. And so, politicians enact policies, one, to rope in their constituents, and two, because it makes them feel morally superior. It's a despicable time that we live in. We are watching the greatest governmental experiment in modern and ancient history disintegrate before our eyes. Well, we're going to do everything in our power to keep that from happening. Us objectivists will do everything in our power to keep that from happening. Is mental manipulation a form of psychological force? Well, what do you think? Is mental manipulation a form of psychological force? No?
Nope.
Well, it could be a form of lying. It could be a form of fraud. It could be a form of force.
You get into that, and you get into the violence of language. No way.
Okay. So, folks, as you may know, I think around the 10th, there was a ceasefire agreement between Hamas and Israel, which appears to hold after alleged violations by Hamas. Alleged, not so much. I mean, I think there are.
Well, hold on. I got to tell you something. Zoo animals benefit from consistent food, veterinary care, and safety from predators, which can reduce. Which can reduce stress and extend lifespans. A 2013 study on African elephants showed captive ones often outlive their wild counterparts.
Of course, they live longer. But do they live happier lives? Are they happy?
Well, they're not suffering starvation and injury.
Look at their body language. Look at their disposition. Look at the compulsive behaviors they engage in. Michael, I want you, when you go to the zoo today, I want you to pay attention to that stuff. I want you to pay attention.
I'm gonna have Jim give me all the best arguments for why the zoo is good for animals.
No, the zoo is good in the sense that it preserves animals from, predation, number one, and from human poaching. It preserves them from extinction. So if people value certain species' lives, they can preserve them and even breed them and promote their lives in the zoo. Tammy Goodman, I have a zoo near me that only takes in animals that would otherwise not survive in the wild, and they're a free zoo. Well, that's good. I'm not saying that should I qualify that maybe some zoos are good? And I did say at the outset that zoos are beginning to realize that these sentient beings have psychological needs as well that need to be met, and they're trying to adapt habitats accordingly. I mean, if you look at the old zoo in LA, because it still sort of exists, I mean, they kept tigers in cages the size of my bedroom. In cages, literal cages, with nothing to jump on, nothing to play with, and as small as my bedroom, a 500-pound cat.
Well, okay, but let's just put this out there. Mark's bedroom is like as big as my house. You have to understand that. Mark has an enormous bedroom. He and Rosie Ginsburg have the biggest bedrooms in the country, and everybody knows it.
This is Codswallop. Anyway, so this ceasefire has been in place since the 10th. But when we talk about breaking the ceasefire deal, the Gazans and the Hamas have done it from the beginning, Michael. They gave us the 20 living hostages, but there was the agreement to give us the 28 dead hostages. They've only given about a little less than half of those hostages back, and even that was taking a period of time because they were claiming they needed rubble clearing equipment and able to reach those hostages. Of course, that's a delay tactic. They've also been sparking firefights with the IDF. They've been rushing the lines of IDF soldiers. Some of them have had to be taken out. Armed Hamas men crossing the border have had to be taken out by aerial bombs, by drones. They've been murdering their own people, executed multiple people, and tortured multiple people on live video when they're supposed to be disarming. So I don't think this thing is going to get out of phase one, to be honest with you, because the Hamas leadership, safely nestled away in other countries, has proclaimed that they will not disarm. They're not going to disarm. So they literally think it's either us or them. Now, you can't negotiate with people who say it's either you or me. You can't. If you have any self-esteem, you can, because there's no in between.
Well, so when I expressed skepticism about the ceasefire holding. I was accused it's Trump derangement syndrome. You just don't want Trump to have success. I can't see it holding. I can't see it going anywhere. As Hamas was murdering these people, Trump said, well, they're bad dudes that they're killing, and I don't really feel bad. How he knows that, I don't know. How, I guess he trusts Hamas because I guess he thinks that the government just tells the truth. I don't know.
He went back on that statement later on, but that's true. He did say that at first. He actually excused the public executions of 7 human beings without a trial. Well, apparently, Michael, they were tried in absentia by a consensus of Palestinian politicians, wherever that council lay. There was a consensus that these people were enemies of the state, which, of course, if you're an enemy of an authoritarian state, that means you're the good guy. Sorry, you're the good guy.
Yeah.
Trump doesn't seem to get that calculus.
He doesn't get much, and his followers get even less.
Which I hope we have established with clarity, and that includes.
And that's the view of Mark and me. That's Mark. That's Mark and I's view.
Yes,
you better.
I forgot to put the disclaimer early on in the show that we are not affiliated with the American Capitalist Party, even though we are the chair and vice chair. What we say here is just the point of view of Mark and Michael. We are capitalists and members of the American Capitalist Party, but we are not representing the American Capitalist Party in our statements here today. And Michael, we got to include some Trumpist objectivists in that evaluation. That they seem to agree with this orientation towards Hamas, that they were just killing bad guys. They have to agree with that if they're on Trump's side with everything.
I don't know. It's. Ugh.
No, folks, what they were doing was wiping out the political opposition to an authoritarian state. And if you oppose authoritarian states, you are a good human being and you deserve to live.
Well, you're a good human being to the extent that you oppose authoritarian regimes. You can still be a scumbag in other regards.
Okay.
You know what I think that a lot of these folks need to really understand, Mark, and really grasp is the intersection between psychology and philosophy.
Yes, they do. In fact, if you need to understand that connection, you can come to that to the Self-Made Soul podcast, which happens once a week, where Michael and I discuss the intersection of psychology and philosophy, and in particular, how much philosophy has helped our lives and how much it has helped to reform us from our beginnings, our rather humble, if not horrible beginnings in many cases, to being thriving human beings who are basically happy and understand that happiness is a good value to pursue.
Yeah. And we've got a great episode coming up yesterday. We discussed Nathaniel Brandon's article on mental health versus mysticism. Next week, we're going to discuss his essay on the psychology of pleasure. It is going to be epic.
God forbid, Michael, people should enjoy themselves in life. I mean, modern morality and society tells us that we should be unhappy. If we're happy, we're doing something bad, probably. Unhappiness, sacrifice, loss, those are the things that the dominant culture out there emulates as the good. Gain, pleasure, success, pride, even, which is just the pleasure you take in the content of your character and the achievements that you've created in the world. These are all associated with sins. You live in a terrible world when it puts you at odds with yourself and with your own life. And so we're going to try to combat that bad medicine outside with good medicine on the show. So please remember to tune in. It's on my Patreon. You can check it out, folks. You can check out the shows there. We'll send clips over the other social media platforms. Hopefully that'll entice you enough to come aboard, read the essays in advance, and discuss them with us too. If you think we're in error in our interpretations, certainly we welcome questions and a healthy discussion about this stuff, because your mind, your philosophy, our lives are at stake, and those are very important things to us. We take them all very, very seriously. So there's an article in Reason magazine that I found very interesting that you sent me, and it's entitled "Pentagon's Foolish Press Policy Might Encourage Tougher Journalism." I sort of like that. So for those of you who don't know, the Secretary of War has limited press access to the Pentagon, and also limited what the Pentagon can, what the reporters can say. It has to be approved beforehand. Now, this is an ostensible attempt to prevent leaks from happening. Embarrassing leaks to the administration. Embarrassing because they show how corrupt and fucked up the administration is, and they don't want the people to know exactly what goes on underneath the hood. But you, as American citizens, should have a transparent government, and a capitalist-oriented society would be completely transparent. So that you could look under the hood of that government and assess for yourself what the officials of government are doing. Hegseth wants to make that quite difficult, and pretty much every single press organization, including some of the most conservative press organizations, with the exception of One News Center, whatever the hell that Trump news organization is called, they almost universally rejected this. Because it would essentially also criminalize whistleblowers. It would criminalize the press organization that publicized what a whistleblower got out there into the world, Michael. So the good news about this is it could cause a little rebellion, and they will now tap sources, outside the power of the Pentagon to stop, and will report maybe even more vigorously than they did before. What do you think about this whole movement on the part of Hegseth and the Department of, it used to be formerly Department of Defense, I prefer to call it Department of Defense and War, to put the kibosh on the free press?
Well, let's just look at some things. They've threatened media organizations with lawsuits and revoking their licenses if those organizations say things the administration doesn't want. They're putting the military on American streets. They're rounding up people and shipping them out of the country, sometimes to prisons without any due process. They're bombing boats that they're claiming are carrying drug dealers. They're threatening other countries, Venezuela and Colombia, with war. And there's this where they're trying to exclude the press from knowing what's going on. The totalitarianism, it may not be in full force because we still do have opposition, but the totalitarians are in power. And people can deny it, but if you look at historical patterns, this is what they do, right? There was also an article recently about how they're trying to get a list of gun owners, like similar to a gun owner registry type thing. This is not good. It's not normal. And yes, I understand that other presidents have abused their power. And I also understand that it gets worse and worse. And it's now really, really bad. And we need to oppose it. We need to oppose it with everything that we have, with all our intellectual might, regardless of whether people say you're obsessed or TDS, whatever other weapons that they try to wield to shut down, dissent. So,
yeah, folks, if you don't think that shutting down the press, that the president suing various press outlets or using the FCC to cudgel certain media organizations into submission, that his use of the Department of Justice to go after an enemies list, that the shutting down of the Pentagon to open reporting, the overreach of government to the control of tech organizations, the takeover of certain corporations, the takeover of stakes in certain corporations so the government has ownership in these corporations, is not an example of tyranny, not just budding tyranny, but we're in the midst of real tyranny. You cannot be an objectivist and a capitalist and accept these in any proportion at all, because none of it should be happening. None. Zero. Nada. The government shouldn't be taking stakes in private companies at all. It shouldn't be subsidizing companies at all. It shouldn't be subsidizing foreign countries at all. It should be completely transparent at every level of government. That includes the Pentagon. The citizens of the United States cannot make appropriate decisions without an appropriate free press. They are the epistemological arm of the citizenry of the United States of America. They need clarity in order to vote. And this is precisely the thing that the Trump is trying to keep from the American people: clear, unfettered information. And they are doing it as a blunt tool. I mean, Trump has already sued multiple organizations, won millions of dollars in concessions from them. This is unprecedented as far as I know in the history of the United States. You cannot, if you are an objectivist and you overlook this stuff, the evasion is so great that I have to say you suffer from Trump derangement syndrome as well.
Sounds good to me. You ready for the capitalist thought of the day?
Oh, sure. Yeah. The time went by so fast.
Yeah, we got 5 minutes. Yeah, you got to do that. We got to give the question. There was something I wanted to say, and I don't remember what the hell it was. But I got to give you credit, Mark, because doing this show at 9 in the morning out here is like, no, it's not for me. 9 a.m. and no way.
Well, you probably wake up 3 hours earlier anyway, and you are always
I've been up basically since 3. Yeah. But still, and I was yelled at because I was rummaging, making noise. Evidently, I don't know.
I feel you. Look,
something about Diana needs to sleep. Come
on. Whatever. People need to sleep. Yeah. But Michael's looking through articles. Dang it.
What I wonder though, you mentioned this just occurred to me about these pictures that are online where I had my shirt off. I wonder if Persephone had them blown up into posters. That's what I'm thinking may have happened.
Or if Lee had them made into life-size cardboard cutouts that she can put in her apartment. That's a possibility.
They may be collaborating. You got a point.
Now that I can't unsee that, I'm going to try to give us the capitalist thought of the day. Look, folks, we are in very perilous times. It is not Trump derangement syndrome to acknowledge the overreach that the president is currently engaged in with respect to media, military power, the use of tariffs to cudgel enemies and allies alike into submitting to his crazy economic nationalism. A capitalist society is a free society, one that leaves the press alone and leaves the American citizen alone to pursue their values unfettered by force. That's right, because the capitalist society bans force from interpersonal relationships. So the only thing the government would be in a capitalist society is the police, the courts, and the army. Everything else would be up to you, folks. I know that's daunting. I know we've heard for decades upon decades upon decades that what about infrastructure? What about the roads? Who would build them without the government? Well, you would, because it's in your interest to. And so would big businesses, because it's in their interests for employees to get to those businesses. It's in their interests for their products to go out to people in the world. And it would probably take a lot better care of those roads than are currently done by our state governments and national governments today. I can tell you personally, when I drive on the 405, it is hell. It's like jumping off of multiple cliffs half the time, because the state of that freeway is in such deep disrepair. This would not happen in a capitalist society. I'm not saying that all problems would be solved. I'm not saying that the problems that people hold today as high as like inequality, none of that stuff will be solved, because unequal strengths, unequal intelligence, unequal abilities will create various inequalities. But the beautiful thing about a capitalist society is you who have less of those things get to benefit from those who have the greater of those things. It's not like a dog eat dog world where only those people consume all the resources. No, they have to create and exchange values with you, which means they are inventing and innovating. If they do it faster than you and better than you, you benefit from it. You get access to materials and technology that you would have never had access to before. The computer right now, the microphone I'm talking on, the cell phone I use, the house that I live in are just examples of all of that. It's at the perceptual level, folks, that capitalism is superior to any other system out there. So please go to AmericanCapitalistParty.org. Donate, become a member, be a part of the change, folks. Let's get away from the tribalism and back to individualism. Michael, you're going to give the question of the day, or do I have to do that?
No. I'll do it. The question. Remember, we need you to go because there's been a real slacking of the comments on the actual YouTube station. You have to go to YouTube, you have to comment, and you have to share the episode. It helps with the show's growth. So please answer this question. The question is this: what can you do, you personally? What can you do to help advance rationality and freedom in this country?
I love that. All right, folks, don't forget to like and subscribe before you leave. Don't forget to share this from YouTube to other social media platforms. Don't forget to go to AmericanCapitalistParty.org and be a part of the change. Look, get merch too, guys. Get merch. Wear your capitalism proudly. We need change in this country if we're going to get better. And Michael, are you in tomorrow?
No way. I'm going to be on a plane.
You're going to be on a plane. So, folks, you won't see us tomorrow, but Wednesday, I think, we're coming in.
Yeah, we are.
We're
Well,
coming
I
in.
am. I'm hoping you come in too. I mean, you do a lot of filming and fancy gallivanting and whatnot.
Traveling on the 23rd, so I think the 22nd will be okay. So hopefully we'll both be here, but one of us will be here for sure. So, folks, until that time, please check your premises and remember, love liberty. It's the greatest discovery since the domestication of fire. All right, we'll see you next time. Peace.